after 10 years, we're finally about to get a brand new season of Phineas and Ferb. So to prepare, I rewatched the whole show, and I'm so excited to get into why the show works so well, plus maybe a few things it can forget. We're going to discuss how the show's formula actually induces creativity and makes the show fun, plus the world building, comedy, music, commentary, character deep dives, especially a long one on Candace and her busting and her relationship with the boys, and why I don't acknowledge Candace against the universe, plus a brief look across the seasons and some special episodes and movies, and finally we're going to end with some hopes for the revival. I'm Harry, and this is Trash Talk Reverse. Mom, Harry from Trash Talk Reverse is doing a TV show breakdown. The formula of Phineas and Ferb is pretty simple. We have two parallel storylines that intertwine. Candace trying to bust the boys and usually failing, and Perry trying to bust Doof and usually winning. There may be a lot of running gags and mini parts to the formula that the show plays with, like Perry's lair entrance, getting trapped, the thing being built, the innator, and how the thing disappears, but this is the main gist. And even the simplest edition of the formula is still set up to be interesting, because we want to see what each storyline looks like and how they connect. The formula is established in the very first episode, Rollercoaster, and then partly flipped on its head in the episode Pair, Candace Loses Her Head, no pun intended, where she ends up trying to show their mom the amazing things she loved that the boys did for her birthday. Also keep in mind the episodes on Disney Plus are in production order, not actual air date, which was so insanely random, but generally the pairings work really well together. Season 1 alone flips around so many elements of the formula to just show how flexible and fresh it can be. And in fact, the formula itself allows for such creativity, because when you have no bounds, it's more difficult to be creative since the possibilities are literally infinite and you wouldn't even know where to start. But having this story engine allows them to make tons of fun episodes while also being really creative due to the nature of how they built that engine. It's also cool because the whole message of the show, particularly season 1, is the importance of creativity and encouraging kids to do something new and creative every day or build their creativity to use in any situation. After that first episode Pair, we also have non-building activities, Candace not busting, various other people busting, switching up locations, Doof not actually having an evil plan, Perry switching up how he engages with Doof, Lawrence hanging out with all the kids, Linda actually seeing what the boys did, people switching storylines and roles, different characters getting a spotlight, each part of the formula being played with or thrown out entirely. Season 1 does such a good job stretching the formula in every single episode, and the next seasons build and build and build and build on that. There is so much variation that makes most of the episodes stand out that I'm almost tempted to list everything they do, but there's a few plays on the formula that really stick out. In I Scream, You Scream, the boys and Doof accidentally switch blueprints, and both Candace and Vanessa are trying to bust them respectively. Traffic Cam Caper has the typical antagonist pairs actually team up against the other storyline, Candace with the boys versus Perry and Doof's robot Norm. Or the episode where Candace dreams about getting the boys busted, and it's a whole commentary on the importance of creativity, but it's also so focused on the Candace storyline that when Perry shows up for his part of the formula, it's like the most cathartic thing ever. The final episode of season 1, Hail Doofania, is literally the boys making an innator with Perry trapped in a cone, and Candace is with her mom, stuck in goth fashion, while Vanessa is stuck in Candace's clothes, trying to bust her dad and failing. There are episodes where the characters literally acknowledge the formula and play with it, like season 2's Don't Even Blink has all the kids watching the invention and thinking there's a sensor in the driveway causing it to disappear. Then there's the formula-less episodes like Oh There You Are Perry, where Perry gets reassigned to a new villain and Doof accidentally helps him get out while Perry's family works together to find him. But Necessary Roughness has everyone except Phineas and Doof chasing after a single item. The Remains of the Platypus from season 3 starts at the end and goes back incrementally to the beginning in a really well-scripted manner. The formula even allows for some fun back-in-time episodes like Tri-Stone Age or Doof Dynasty, and there's a boatload of special episodes we'll get to later. And there's even fun in how the episodes intersect. Sometimes Perry's mission has nothing to do with the boys' invention disappearing, or the intersection happens in unexpected ways. Season 1 also does a lot of world-building work to establish its characters, comedy, and cartoon format. Right off the bat in Rollercoaster, they take the kids across the world, hitting the Statue of Liberty, Mount Rushmore, Paris, and even space, showing you that this is a type of cartoon where they can pretty much do anything, and part of the fun is playing with the cartoon boundaries. Comedic boundaries are also pushed in the episode Pair when the Fireside Girls set up a crude drawing of Mount Rushmore to cover the real project, and it's hilariously accepted by Candace's mom as the real thing. Again, this sets the standards for what kind of show this is, because obviously that doesn't look like actual Mount Rushmore. It tells us, oh, this kind of show is playing with being absurd and intentionally pushing the boundaries of disbelief. Even a random orchestra showing up in the middle of the lava explosion. Across the seasons, there are just so many tiny jokes and a wide variety, to even ones that are more visual or circumstantial. You can tell they put a lot of effort into creating and exploring the comedy of the show. And honestly, they can be so hilariously random sometimes, like Babyface Trucking. Our drivers look like children, but they're not. I also love that the show genuinely embraces being a cartoon and gets super fun and creative with being an animated medium. I want to point out the really fun and creative chase sequences with Phineas, Ferb, Candace, and the Gumball Machine in Are You My Mummy? And it really shows how well these episodes are storyboarded too, because the chosen shots, edits, movements, they're all spot on for comedy. They even got Doof turning on his backstory on the TV as if it's real footage, and that's how we get the iconic garden gnome story and the first official backstory. The cartoon shenanigans of Run Candace Run, like the animators had fun with that episode. There's classic cartoon moments like Doof's cartoon dash in Does This Duckbill Make Me Look Fat, but he's still there, or in the Fireside Girls Jamboree where Perry is literally in midair while Monogram tells him we teleported you too far to the right, and only then does Perry fall down. Or just completely taking advantage of the medium like in Deplane when everyone bends down while wearing swimsuits but then stands back up fully dressed with skateboards in hand. Perry grabbing completely random clothes in Vanessary roughness with close-ups on him taking those clothes, but then he comes out dressed in an outfit of completely different clothes. They even mention it outright in Make Play when Monogram's like, what are the odds of the Princess of Drusselstein looking exactly like Candace? And Carl's like, well, it is a cartoon, sir. And they celebrate the making of cartoons in Out of Tune with the kids making their own cartoons. That's this whole meta commentary on the show itself. Season 1 in particular also trickles in a lot of world building bit by bit rather than dumping it all on us at once. Characters like Jeremy and Irving are seen before they're introduced, and through them we're introduced to even more characters like Coltrane and Albert. Carl is mentioned by name before we're introduced to him, and later he even gets his own theme song. Perry has access to all sorts of tools or vehicles. OWCA is built up slowly over time as we learn about other animal agents, and eventually we get introduced to Love Muffin and other evil scientists. Stacy is also mentioned by name before she's not only introduced and later developed further as the Disco Queen, but gets loads of characterization across the seasons to the point where she straight up finds out Perry's secret and helps Vanessa hide Monty Monogram from his father. Even the fact that they could introduce Monty so late in the show, in the super memorable Minor Monogram episode where Vanessa and Perry literally trash talk a new villain together, and later there's a whole episode dedicated to Monty getting his dad to thank Carl. That alone shows how good this show is at introducing new elements, new characters, and making them compelling by combining them with existing elements and characters to create interesting dynamics. It's also crazy the way Buford and Baljeet are introduced in season 1. It shows how not only were they not friends with each other, but they also weren't friends with Phineas Ferb and Isabella until later on. And the episode Raging Bully does a lot to introduce these early dynamics. Of course, the best character introduction of the show is Doof introducing Vanessa as his assistant in The Magnificent View, and by the end of the episode, she's like, this is the worst bring your daughter to work day ever, and he's like, tell your mother you had fun. The layers of world building and the comedic randomness are really fun, with the parents getting tons of random hobbies and characterization, the numerous musical acts including Marty the Rabbit Boy and his musical blender, the Fireside Girls and all their patches, Ferb TV featuring Ducky Momo, the fallout of the Sky Lady and her husband, Doof's family lore and Norm, and also the world of Danville, the tri-state area, and the literal world beyond that. I love it when sitcoms pick random things to build out their lore. Like, they have a whole evil science industry. Like, there's just so much richness to the way they build out this show, and it really makes you wonder what they could possibly have in store with more seasons. Music also plays a massive role in the show. Almost every episode has a song. Special episodes have multiple songs. Even the instrumental musical score has so much detail. Like, in addition to a myriad of fun themes, they also play with interpolations of these themes and fun musical editing to really hit that comedy, tone, and scene pacing. Like, there's a few instances of them switching up Candace's theme or the Quirky Worky song. There's the 24 versions of the Doof Evil Inc. jingle, the action themes when Perry fights someone, the Pirates of the Caribbean-esque and Under the Sea-esque themes that crop up reminding you, hey, this is a Disney show. Like, next time you're doing your rewatch, I really suggest looking for this stuff because there's just so much fun stuff going on in the background that really boosts the storytelling to the next level. The actual songs are also super enjoyable, exposing audiences to a wide variety of genres, and you can really tell that the musical team of the show knows music on a deep level. That Love Handle episode is a total homage to rock and roll, with Danny's song explaining the various rock genres that stem from the blues. You can tell the creators are massive rock fans from all the homages across the show, like Tiny Cowboy's Meatloaf song being reminiscent of Wonderwall by Oasis, or Carl's Evil for Extra Credit having a main riff that is basically a remix of Metallica's Enter Sandman riff, plus the accuracy of the grunge music they play whenever they bring up Seattle, and the fun coming-of-age movie vocal style in Let's Spend Half a Day Together, and the cool 80s homages with Lindana and Max Modem. Given how many episodes there are, it's honestly insane the amount of hits this show is producing. There's of course the iconic Gitchy Gitchy Goo that the show is known for, plus the iconic Busted, SIMP Squirrels in My Pants, and There's a Platypus Controlling Me. Some that I find myself accidentally humming are We're Watching and Waiting, Some Are All Over the World, Little Bit of Home on the Road, the absolute smash hit that is my nemesis, plus Evil Boys, and then underrated hits like Let's Go Digital, or Let's Take a Rocket Ship to Space, Disco Miniature Golfing Queen, Squirt That Gelatin Monster, and seriously underrated hits like the Love Muffin theme song Evil Tonight and Candace's Me, Myself, and I. There's some super catchy chorus hooks like Fabulous, Mix and Mingle Machine, Floor After Floor, So Much Fun Not Knowing Where You're Going Deep Into Your Mind, and Where Cow on the Rampage. And the lyrics are always entertaining regardless, like Running from Love in a Bear Suit, the Drusselstein driving test waltz, that final song in Excalibur where the fight doesn't end and so the song also doesn't end. Like, the comedy is very much infused in the writing of these songs. And it's not like the songs disappear forever either. Like when Perry disguises himself at the Giant Supercenter, they play the BGM from Fabulous as the guy tells him he looks fabulous, and of course the elevator music of Lindana's song or Gitchy Gitchy Goo. Sometimes we get full choreographies like in Candace Party or Doof's addiction to kick lines in his many backstory songs. And sometimes these songs come with really fun animation sequences like the catchy Livin' in a Funhouse. There's also satire and life lesson songs like Lies, Lies, Lies and Tonight I'm Breaking Out. Plus genuine tearjerkers like I'll Miss the Moments When We Didn't Get Along, which is sonically related to My Nemesis, which is part of the same episode, and Try Not to Cry during Come Home Perry. There's a whole episode dedicated to dance, plus the Lots of Me remix at the end of Living Pharmacists. Like this music section alone could be 10 hours long, so let me just stop. But it's just awesome that a show about creativity is exposing kids to the vast creativity of music, and all the characters in the show are musicians, from the kids to the teens to the parents, and everyone's a singer who gets their own songs. The episode Oh There You Are Perry literally showcases the power of music as they sing for Perry to come home. Like this is such a great message for kids to fall in love with music and creating and understanding the power of art. The show is actually full of inspiring and hopeful messages for young kids and adults alike. Of course, creativity and making the most of every day is one of them, but also encouraging kids to actually think and supporting intellectualism, the importance of teamwork, challenging the status quo, being good people, being brave and facing your fears, trying new things, and not judging people by stereotypes. In fact, one thing I find really interesting about the show is the way it simultaneously exaggerates stereotypes to make fun of the tropes, but also gives a lot of depth to the characters to show they go beyond those tropes. And we'll discuss this more in the character breakdown. In season 4's Face Your Fear, Buford's afraid of skateboarding over the fire hydrant like Isabella and Baljeet because he doesn't want to get hurt, so Baljeet suggests making foam hydrants, and the brothers are on board too. And that's actually a great scene for kids because Buford spoke up about not being comfortable, Baljeet suggested something else, and everyone else was on board without judging him. So that's just a great message. There's also a ton of commentary. Several episodes poke fun at the exploitative corporations, consumerism, and the quickly passing nature of trends, just to name a few. Attack of the 50-Foot Sister has Candace calling out both the oddball guy and the makeup lady for exploiting people's insecurities to make money. There are so many episodes that go after the ridiculous teen magazines that have terrible tropey advice for impressionable young girls. Does He Think You're Pretty Enough? 10 Ways You Could Be Better is such a great title for the spoof magazine article because it really shows the way these things center around teaching girls to change themselves for male validation. Even the smallest gags can be insightful commentary, like some random guy hitting on Vanessa while she's on Doof's scooter and Doof telling him she's 16 and zapping him to another dimension. As mentioned earlier, some songs also have lyrics with satirical commentary, like the How to Be a Lady song from My Fair Goalie, the irony of the Baljeet's pro-establishment, pro-conformity lyrics for Gimme a Grade over the rebellious rock and roll music. Probably most importantly, when it comes to scripting their episodes, they never try to use kiddie dialogue to simplify what's going on. Even the characters that are kids, their dialogue is always using an appropriate variety of vocabulary, which is really important for kids growing up to be exposed to. People don't realize how much thought has to go into a show made for kids, because some people think the hard part is making it funny for teens and adults, but the real hard part is making sure that it's a genuinely enriching and educational experience for kids, teaching them about life and society and encouraging them to be their best selves. Phineas and Ferb isn't afraid to be for all ages. They don't shy away from their various topics or the way they're discussed, or showcasing growth and complexity through character challenges and relationships. It may be an animated sitcom for kids, but it's actually using that medium to tell its stories and convey inspiring messages for all ages. So now let's get into the character deep dives. First, let's talk about Phineas. Rewatching the first few episodes of the show and seeing the version of Phineas that was weirdly snarky and trying too hard to be quirky and weird, like boredom is something up with which I will not put, I am so glad they changed his character to a super positive, optimistic, to a fault and single-minded focused kid. Like the fact that Phineas lies to Candace about doing homework in Rollercoaster is so strange, and later his complete openness with everyone from Candace to their parents about what he and Ferb are up to, that just works so much better with the story. Someone who really refuses to see the negative of anyone or anything, that is really a great model, not just for kids, but for anyone really, and his character works so well with the message of the show. Not to say there aren't times where he's challenged or gets depth, but situating those moments within the context of this version of Phineas just has a lot more impact for those messages anyway. Like Summer Belongs to You just wouldn't hit if Phineas wasn't this super optimistic guy who got broken down by circumstance. He can still have some moments of cheekiness, but they feel more light and good-natured rather than weird and snarky. Especially with Candace, it really shows that their relationship isn't truly that antagonistic. And in fact, there are so many instances where Candace actually influences the boys' project of the day and changes their perspective. Like when she told them fashion was art people wear. This kind of relationship couldn't really have been there if Phineas was the old snarky type. For him to help Candace get the traffic cam disc back and help her bust him, or that episode where she got him to call their mom to bust himself, even a few times where he backs up Candace about she's telling the truth, these can only exist because of this version of the character. His obliviousness also comes in with Isabella and how she feels about him, and honestly, he definitely liked her way back then. I don't care what actor age says, it's obvious the writers intended that from even season 1, when Phineas would literally drop everything to help Isabella or do something for her, like in One Little Scare. Even in Night of the Living Pharmacists, the way he's screaming his head off over her, like he obviously cares for her in a very specific way, but isn't really able to recognize that at this point. The other two critical relationships he has in this show are Ferb and Perry, and while there isn't that much exploration of these relationships, they're more like those steady rocks that are always there for him. Phineas Phineas and Perry actually get some time during the movie, Oh There You Are Perry, Where's Perry, plus a few others, and you can really tell that despite the little time they spend together, Phineas really cares about Perry. And Perry also cares about the family. You can see that with little details like him carefully putting back the lamp and pot while he's fighting Dennis the rabbit, or the way he immediately arrested Doof that time he thought the boys might be under direct threat. Ferb, on the other hand, he's always there. Even though Phineas has most of the lines, Ferb actually gets a lot of the songs. He's like an all-purpose brother, Phineas's second half. They don't need to give him a ton of lines for him to have that presence in the show, because you can still see his personality and the way he compliments Phineas. They really work together like a unit. And he does get the spotlight quite a few times, like when he was a dancing machine for Jeremy, or the star of Football X7, or he turned Sith real quick for 3 minutes. The Thaddeus and Thor episode really highlights that Flynn-Fletcher sibling dynamic, with Ferb refusing Phineas when he copies Thaddeus and demands gum, and Candace forcing the boys to build something so she can prove how awesome they are. Now let's get into their friends. Isabella's character could have been reduced to a stereotypical girl next door with a crush, but there's actually quite a bit of depth to her. She hangs out with the boys but doesn't have to dress like a tomboy, which was a great example for young girls in an era where the she's better because she's not like other girls trope was extremely prevalent. Isabella is very much like other girls. She has a whole troop of fireside girls that she also hangs out with sometimes. There are episodes where she says hi to the boys but then goes off with the girls, or she has the brothers help out with the girls, or all the girls and guys embark on some adventures together. Her crush on Phineas isn't even referenced in most episodes, but it does get squeezed in here and there. Sometimes it's funny, like Phineas telling Ferb to make a note to get Candace to plan his wedding, and Isabella's like, I got it. There are episodes that dive more into the crush thing. Sometimes it's done in a normal way, though there are a few times where it definitely felt like they were trying a bit too hard. In that Temple of Sap episode, it was really weird how they were like, you just want an excuse to see Phineas, and she was like, that's the very thing I live for. Like, plenty of previous episodes have established that Isabella has a life outside of Phineas and is not thinking about him all the time, but this episode made it seem like the only thing on her mind ever is Phineas. Like we're really supposed to believe the girl who was smart enough in Quantum Boogaloo to ditch the future crew and go back to the past with a steel wood fusing tool in order to prevent any of the time travel from happening is suddenly too enthralled to pay attention to what Phineas is saying, and for her to imagine Phineas being like, screw these silly projects and let's be together forever. Like, girl, you literally enjoy the projects and you always have your own projects too with the patches and such. In fact, being a fireside girl is actually a much bigger part of her identity than anything else. As a serious exaggeration of Girl Scouts, these girls are shown to have technical and engineering prowess just like the boys do. They do a wide variety of crazy things for patches. They have this whole community of girls around the world, and even though we don't see as much of them, they come off as a very reliable group to lean on for Isabella. She even has friendships with the other boys, like Ferb looking out for her with Phineas, her cheering on Baljeet during the mountain climb, her slapping Buford out of boredom. Like, overall, she is a really well-rounded character, and she doesn't have to give up her pink or girliness or female friends to fit in with a group of boys, and that's pretty cool to see. Then there's Buford and Baljeet, who I have to talk about together. They're both examples of stereotypes that get super exaggerated and broken at the same time, and mostly this can be fun, but sometimes it can be a bit weird. I know that the Indian kid who loves school and math stereotype can definitely be a bit much. Usually the show does a good job demonstrating that kids who do fit into this category on the surface have much more depth and still deserve to be included and can be funny and interesting characters. In fact, most of the time the stereotype isn't really even acknowledged, and Baljeet is just a regular kid with his own quirks like everyone else. And in fact, he actually gets a lot of the funny sarcastic comments in the show. But I will admit the Baljeetles episode definitely could have been a little too extra, even though it's still fun. I think looking at episodes like that on their own might make it seem a bit too stereotypical, but overall across the show, his more memorable moments include free climbing a mountain, clapping back at Isabella for saying he speaks boring by saying, hearing about your whittling patch was so exciting, and pretending to be Phineas while Buford plays Ferb. Showing Baljeet in a variety of random scenarios across these episodes really normalizes him, like he exists beyond the stereotypes, and episodes like Deplane Deplane showcase his cleverness in handling difficult situations, like being a flight attendant with Isabella on the Paper Pelican and getting to explain how the Paper Pelican dissolves. Also in Ain't No Kitty Ride, Baljeet's ride needing more money and it just won't accept the dollar no matter what. It's such a simple but fun gag. One of the best ways to normalize and humanize a culture that is often dehumanized and attacked is to infuse it with comedy. So the rubber band ball factory, the tigers getting his ancestors while biking, his uncle Malik being transported back from vacation, the whole thing with Mishti, basically showing that these Indian characters are just like any other characters in the show, and therefore any other people in the world. Buford's character, on the other hand, is rooted in the bully stereotype, and across the season, they try to break that a lot with his random love of quilting, his tons of musical instruments, his fluency in French, randomly crying after the lemonade stand closes, and of course his friendship with Baljeet. But did they take the bully stuff a bit too far though? Like, even for a show that likes exaggerating tropes to make fun of them, it still might rub you the wrong way when he has a regular flagpole wedgie schedule for Baljeet whenever the latter pisses him off, or having Baljeet in a cage, or even when Baljeet was like, I can handle all the horrible stuff you do, but I draw the line at you choosing plastic over paper, and therefore I can now no longer be your nerd. Like, even though it's all for comedy, especially the concept of a bully-nerd relationship being a mutually agreed transaction, it does feel kind of weird, because ultimately this is still a kid's show. And what kind of message are you sending if you're telling kids, hey, bullies and and nerds can be friends as long as you let the bullies do some bullying here and there. Like, I don't know if I'm underestimating kids' abilities to read that as pure exaggeration or if it really is that weird. But thankfully, after that episode of the bully bromance breakup, Buford really seemed to learn a lesson about wedgies being terrible. And from then on through seasons 3 and 4, there wasn't really a weird expectation for Buford to be doing all these horrible bullying things in their friendship. And really, moments like those make up a smaller portion of the show anyway. There's plenty of moments in their friendship that don't feed into those weird tropes, like when they were in Africa, and also the batting cages, competing over brains versus brawn, the frenemy song they did for Isabella's grandma and friends, pranks in the Lake Nose Monster episode where only Baljeet got in trouble, when they had to pretend to be Phineas and Ferb, the sci-fi versus fantasy thing, the whale mango episode, and also Buford going after the zombie pharmacists because they got Baljeet. Like, there's plenty of instances of their friendship actually being fun and interesting to explore. Buford confiding in Baljeet about Brigitte is one of those moments where it's like, yeah, their unconventional friendship works. Plus, there's also aspects of his trope that can be funny or teach him lessons, like when he tried to ruin the Tri-State Area Unification Day parade, or tried to help Candace keep the boys' invention from disappearing, his bully version of the Christmas special song, or giving a tour of Candace's mind and then hanging out with her id after Baljeet had his own moment of saving the day by ripping out the machine that took them into Candace's mind. Generally, across the board, their characters do get plenty of variety. But there's one character that really plays with tropes, and that's Candace. Despite the title of the show, Candace is extremely central to the stories. She starts as the stereotypical older teenage sister, which is often exaggerated for the sake of comedy, like when she dramatically cries to her mom about her life being over, or the stereotype is challenged or broken entirely, like when we learn she can play a ton of different instruments. Even her busting becomes an extremely nuanced thing in and of itself. People forget this is an animated sitcom first and foremost, so no, she's not crazy for always wanting to bust the boys, and no, her mom is not gaslighting her. Like, the way people are so divided over this is just not that serious. Her busting the boys is literally part of the story engine and the formula. There's no need to psychoanalyze it, but we can still dissect the nuance in her obsession because the show does this as well. Sometimes busting gets in the way of her life and she learns to recognize that. Sometimes it's the Jeremy stuff that gets in her way and she has to learn from that. What's interesting is that Jeremy genuinely likes her and supports her busting and doesn't judge her at all. This breaks that stereotype of a boy crazy teenage girl because there are so many instances of Jeremy being super into Candace, like keeping the pencil she chewed in school, showing off his slushy dog skills so she'll take a picture, naming Candace's favorite sandwich after her in his uncle's restaurant, and waiting by the phone for her before leaving a million messages in Backyard Aquarium, and then cheering for her in the water show. Candace also actively takes part in a lot of the boys' projects, sometimes by accident and sometimes together. The busting can honestly be justified a lot of the time because the boys genuinely do dangerous things that even get Candace hurt or in trouble, though a few of those times it's definitely her fault for getting involved in the first place. The few times Linda does actually bust them, like in the Pioneer Town or with the giant popper thing, you can tell she's genuinely concerned as a parent. So you see there's so much nuance to her busting that comes as a result of the formula and them just having fun with the possibilities. And it's not like Candace is being malicious about this either. A lot of the times, especially in later seasons, it's really about being right. The show even acknowledges the whole Candace never being believed trope as an actual existing trope in popular media, like when she binge watched those movies where everything disappears and no one believes the girl. Even Phineas and Lawrence try to show or tell Linda stuff and she doesn't believe them. Or even when Linda tries to bring Lawrence home to see something and he doesn't see it. Or even the reporter with the crazy ass name Mike Hat of a Pilgrim losing all his footage, or Vanessa being unable to prove to her mom that Doof is evil. This is a trope, and it's fun to see how they play with it. The show isn't trying to villainize or victimize Candace. She's a funny main character at the center of the comedy. Like Phineas says to her in Out of Tune, she's not the villain everyone hates. She's the star of the show that everyone loves. Though there are a couple of times where we're really pushing that suspension of disbelief with Linda not seeing the boys' creations, like the nanobot in the Latkes episode, but the vast majority of the time, it works just fine. Her busting is also shown to be a good thing a lot of the time, and not just something that applies only to her. Meap literally gravitates to her for being a buster, because he is too. Lulu Busting Jones made a whole TV show about busting brothers. Thaddeus and Thor's sister started a whole non-busting club for sisters after being just like Candace. Stacy's mom praises her because the busting show's focus. It's simultaneously part of the older sister trope and also a Candace thing that her loved ones know her for and even find endearing, like Jeremy. Even when she said, "I have to shop and bust my brothers," her doppelganger said, "You make life like American teenagers on TV." So let me reiterate, it's a trope. That's what makes it fun. There are so many episodes where she doesn't even attempt to bust the boys for a variety of reasons, and we see her deal with other situations. Sometimes that's unrelated to the boys entirely. Sometimes she asks for their help. Sometimes they ask for her help. Sometimes they just happen to be involved in the same project together. You can tell she has a special bond with the boys. The whole busting thing is almost like something she does because she likes it, and it's just a fun part of the formula. Candace is also really creative and capable throughout the show. She builds that giant dinosaur ride, creates the toaster mirror thing for the supercomputer, combines Mindy Mimic with the helicopter to get it to her mom, and tricks alien criminals into going home with square dance commands to save her brothers. Her bust urge is defined as an urge, not some validation-seeking insecurity. There are a couple outlying moments, like the Ant Farm episodes, where it felt super manufactured for the show to insinuate no one appreciates Candace Candace's ideas just so they could have a moment that wasn't completely identical to Queen of Mars, but generally Candace does and is appreciated for a lot of cool stuff. Winning Mayor for a day, even if it doesn't stick, Stacy hyping her up for everything she's done, saving the day in Meapless in Seattle, and helping during the Where's Perry fight, and Candace would never feel inferior to the boys, as we saw in Thaddeus and Thor and countless other times where she either thinks that what they've built is awesome or helpful, or she goes straight into bust mode. There's no insecurity there. Even when busting with Stacy and Jenny, it's not a life or death matter for Candace. They show the busting thing is not that serious because Candace tells the friends, give it a rest, and they're like, you said to wait until she offers pie, and then when Linda's like, who wants pie? Candace says me. So again, this busting thing is just a part of her life. Yeah, it sucks she didn't bust them, but she's still gonna have pie, and there will still be tomorrow. Her being dramatic about it is because it's funny for the show, and because she's a teenager. And in several episodes, Candace does get unfairly grounded for things like the ATV and the Candace party, which does make her desire to bust the boys more understandable. Candace is actually a really well-rounded character with a lot going on, and that's what makes her so fun to watch. The other buster in the cast is Perry, who tries to bust Doofenshmirtz. What's interesting about this is, again, despite following a pattern for many episodes, it's obvious they both want to do this day to day. They don't have to, as we saw Perry can arrest Doof whenever he wants, as he did when he thought the boys were in danger, and Doof literally wants Perry to be involved in his schemes, like we see in the Whale Song episode. That's just their thing, and again, it's part of that story engine that keeps this show going. Doesn't mean they can't break the formula, and they often do, in really fun ways, sometimes working together, sometimes doing separate things. It just creates an interesting dynamic that we enjoy watching episode after episode. There are even moments like Perry just waiting, and Doof tells him you could have at least gotten into your trap, and Perry willingly does it. Doof can actually have some really petty schemes, and honestly, he enjoys being evil. Like, it's fun for him to be doing all this. He gets genuinely annoyed at the smallest things and enjoys putting together schemes to deal with them. He even bonded with a woman about how much they love evil, but he's also not nearly as evil as the other evil scientists because he thinks they're stupid for how far they want to go and destroy the world. It's also amusing that he's never thinking big scale evil. It's always minor inconveniences or taking over the tri-state area, and his beef with his brother Roger. Another thing that's interesting about his character is that he is also divorced and lives entirely off his wife's alimony. Like, I think that's a really interesting dynamic to present in this show, especially as a contrast to Linda and Lawrence, who technically do own and run an antique store together, but Linda also does kind of represent more of a stereotypical mom and has a much bigger presence in the kids' lives because of Candace's story engine, though she also does have a vast number of hobbies. Doof is here living off his wife's money and treating evil like his literal job, to the point where Vanessa identifies a tied-up major monogram as her dad bringing work with him on vacation. And his relationship with Vanessa is also interesting to see, because he really does try to be a good dad. He's just weird. He also does have a pretty amicable relationship with Charlene, pictures in his house, and she gives him advice about gargoyle-related decor, and attends the Doof family kickball games. Perry being a part of these dynamics can be really fun as well. First of all, he has the best facial expressions. It's also fun to see his attempts to hide his two lives from each other, and it makes me wonder about the potential in the revival, because Stacy knows, and Vanessa knows, and Stacy saved Vanessa and Monty from Major Monogram, and Candace is separately friends with both Stacy and Vanessa, and technically did see Perry as an agent once while she thought she was hallucinating, and Doof technically has met the kids, including Candace as herself, and Perry looking like Candace thwarting him, and it's all complicated but fun. Of course, I can't end this section without mentioning the running gag of Platypus? Perry the Platypus. Most of the time, it is genuinely funny. There's an episode where Doof's professor doesn't believe Perry's a secret agent, and he's like, no, I made that mistake a few times too, but that's him. However, I do think there are times when they go too far, even for a show that loves taking things far. There's an episode where Doof traps him in a pickle trap, then later thinks a different platypus got in there because Perry had taken off his hat, so then he frees him and Perry fights back and puts the hat back on, and Doof is still like, I don't know what you did with the other platypus. Or the whole thing with Steven the platypus and Primal Perry. Like, I really think that's going too far, because Doof is not that dumb. But for the most part, keeping the gags small and light to where Perry's either a plumber or a banjo playing platypus or whatever, like when he starts off out of the hat and then puts on the hat, that's fun. Now, before we get into the special episodes, let's quickly go over the 4 seasons to see how the show evolved. As discussed earlier, season 1 really plays with the formula a lot and establishes the incredible creativity in every single episode. The writers set things up to unfold a particular way and then subvert expectations entirely. It also builds out characters, even side characters, and most importantly, whose dream is it? I think the first dream was Candace, because I doubt Perry would be dreaming so intricately about Candace, though I guess you could say he desires for Candace to not bust the boys, and he dreamed about that, but really based on the details and the emphasis of it all, I think it's Candace's dream first, and then she maybe told her family off screen, and then Perry dreamed that when Candace told them about the dream, it veered into the secret agent discussion, and then the SWAT team came in. But honestly, when the writers wrote this, I don't think they were thinking whose dream is it. I think they just thought it would be a funny ending, and it was. It's a lesson in not always overthinking a show that's just trying to have fun. Season 2 kicks off with the super iconic Lake Nose Monster episode, which switches up the formula a ton. Candace finally gets evidence of the monster but protects it for the boys. As she says, Candace is crazy but the monster is safe. And it shows she really does have a good relationship with the boys. We get some great physical comedy too, like in Attack of the 50-Foot Sisters, the guy says I need new oddballs, followed by bobblehead Candace running down with her tongue out. Or that giant tent movie moving forward with just Candace's hands and feet crawling. Very Tom and Jerry inspired. Plus Perry crashing into the drums and coming out looking crazy with a banjo, and the Candace party song having a full choreography while she raps about how it's not a party, it's an intimate get-together. Honestly, she's probably almost as popular as Phineas and Ferb in their town. It's a really long season for sure that expands significantly on the previous one and gives us some iconic special episodes that we'll go over in a bit. Season 3 really enhances the sitcom style comedy, especially with Candace's shenanigans right in the hilarious first episode pair, and Perry's dealings like the secret cat door, upping the ridiculousness, and even the tiniest situations are hilarious. Like, why was Ray Liotta filling in for his ex-Academy buddy Major Monogram? There are lots of fun episodes where they play with the formula or throw it out entirely. Also, the biosphere is genuinely one of the coolest inventions they've done, and My Fair Goldie is a super fun episode. We also get Perry helping Vanessa and Monty as he's more involved in everyone's personal life. This season also has several episodes where they go to different eras, but they can be pretty hit or miss. Tri-Stone Area was a smash hit, and it really shows you how the formula actually allows you to understand exactly what's going on. They do cut to the showrunners explaining things every now and then, but honestly they didn't need to do that because you can understand the dialogue based on inflection alone, and that's really fun. Doof Dynasty is also fun because of how random the plot gets, and we also get the smash hit Way of the Platypus. Excalibur is decent, I guess, playing with fantasy tropes, but it's not particularly memorable for me. Temple of Watchadoon plays with that Indiana Jones trope. It is fun to see how each of the characters is assigned to these various tropes, like Candace being the reporter, but the story itself was just fine. And there are lots of iconic episodes from this season that make up for it. Now, somewhat ironically, season 4 kicks off with an episode about creative blocks. The kids don't want to rehash old projects, while Doof makes a Feed the Pigeons-inator because he's out of ideas. It's fitting because they've been doing the show for so long at this point, but despite that, they're still able to get super creative with ideas like Perry and Pinky teaming up, Stacy finding out Perry's secret, fun Halloween specials, and more comedy on even the smallest level like random gags. We also get really fun lair entrances like Perry taking the bathtub as a motorboat and switching up the formula in other interesting ways. Though it definitely is the first season, I think, where I felt like several episodes weren't quite up to par, like Sidetracked. I honestly pretend this episode doesn't exist. It's frankly slanderous to act like Perry's some lone wolf who needs to learn the lesson of teamwork. Like, we have seen him utilize other OWCA agents or ask for help so many times, and him recruiting Peter the Panda because he learned some big lesson about teamwork is really dumb, because those two have worked together before. Perry has never been anti-teamwork, and Agent Lila is just not interesting. But the season also gives us the Clint Balloon ultimatum, which is pretty awesome, pretty underrated, and a great story for the whole Flynn Fletcher family with a 24-hour award show, plus Candace and the kids defeating the bad corporate guy, and Perry's brief stint as an award-winning tambourinist. But as much as I would love to talk about every single episode, let's just dive a little bit into the special episodes and movies. Starting with Quantum Boogaloo. You can tell they made this really early in the show. Candace living in the same house with really boring kids while being a regular mom just feels completely out of character. Her kids are like the opposite of Phineas and Ferb. They do nothing while Amanda busts them for doing nothing, which is just jarring and honestly kind of lame. Plus, there's no way Candace would have a teenage daughter in 20 years either. She'd have to have a kid in the middle of college. So I think they just did that to mirror the Flynn Fletcher kids dynamic. But if you don't think too much about that and just take the episode for what it is, the point of the episode really is just to have another fun what if type episode. And that dystopian future delivers a good message about the importance of creativity and letting kids be kids. You can't lock childhood away and protect them all the time. Candace's kids say everything's already been done, so there's nothing to do. And so Phineas and Ferb respond that there's always more you can do because creativity never ends. Now, it is funny seeing Perry and Doof so geriatric, but I hope none of this is actually considered canon because the future just feels so wrong for these characters. Plus, I think the whole incident technically gets cancelled out because Isabella got the thing, so butterfly effect maybe? Regardless, I hope they just treat this as like a for fun episode and don't include this in the actual canon. Now, on the other hand, Chronicles of Meap is just so iconic and fun, and it sets up an awesome don't judge a book by its cover theme. I love how Phineas establishes this with the baseball scene, then we immediately cut to Candace literally judging 5 books by their covers, and then she really gets her mom by asking how did you pick them from the library, and Linda's just like they looked good. And then of course this theme ties in with the whole Meap thing. This episode is actually one of the big reasons I don't acknowledge Candace against the universe. Like, Meap literally gravitates to Candace for being a buster, then defends her from the guards who were bullying her, and then she and Meap gotta work together to save the kids. Also, seeing how the ending trailer of Craziness comes to life in Meapless in Seattle is really fun. The trailer itself is great, and now it makes me curious about the next trailer, which they definitely need to have in the revival. Overall, between Candace working with Meap, the boys and Isabella just chilling with the villain, Doof and Balloony, Candace trying to bust herself along with the boys, Phineas scientifically recognizing Isabella's cuteness and only her being able to snap him out of the cute spell, and that crazy Georgia accent Meap mustache, there's just so much fun packed into these episodes, along with some great messages for kids. Wizard of Odd is also a very fun episode. The way the universes are combined and what part each character plays is just spot on. Doof's character here is just hysterical, and same with all the shenanigans at the Warlock Castle. Also a nice lesson for kids about having fun or taking the creative way out instead of just doing what you're told and sticking to the rules. The episode ends with Candace waking up from the dream and just having fun instead of busting. Then we have the Beak, which is a classic superhero story, but PNF style. Candace really kills kills me this episode, immediately recognizing the Beak must be her brothers, cosplaying as a giraffe villain trying to steal her mom's purse, joining the bad guy because she thinks it's a game, which makes Phineas give up because he genuinely believes the bad guy got Candace. There's also Phineas and Isabella's whole Superman Lois Lane shtick and their friendship being tested because of the secret, and Ferb running around crazy without Phineas manning the top half of the suit. Mission Marvel should have taken notes, but more on that later. Nerds of a Feather is a super interesting episode, and it's an homage to special effects and both sci-fi and fantasy as genres, plus to the TV world with Doof hilariously pitching his 80s action show, Doofenshmirtz. And it's cool because Phineas and Ferb is a TV show with animators and both sci-fi and fantasy elements. The whole episode is packed with comedy. Ferb using fake invisibility as a real power that the other side actually honors, Candace sneaking out as a secret Ducky Momo fan and accidentally ending the monster battle while trying to tell everyone how their tools aren't real, and all the details of Doofenshmirtz. This episode really nailed how these genre fans talk. Irving yapping to Phineas about how fantasy lovers are losers for thinking magic is better than sci-fi, Albert saying Stumbleberry Finkbat is smarter and more realistic than space adventure, Irving claiming space adventure is like watching a reality show from the future because it's based on cold hard science, while fantasy is for kids. Like, they never discuss story or storytelling craft, just how realistic it seems and whether it makes you feel smart for watching it. Just commentary about the superficial way people judge stories, with Candace being a secret Ducky Momo fan that everyone thinks is lame and for kids, but the show meant a lot to her growing up. Even the TV exec calling the monster ending of Doofenshmirtz lazy writing seems like it's poking fun at TV execs not knowing what they're talking about, because Doof actually established earlier in his pitch that Roger had the ability to shapeshift. Plus, this episode itself has a monster that Phineas and Ferb used to reunite everyone, so they definitely got a little meta there. Summer Belongs to You is the massive season 2 special, and there's a lot about this special that's fun, with lots of cool locations and great musical numbers. There's some fun lessons learned, like Candace learning to be less insecure about Jeremy liking her, Vanessa and Doof learning to meet each other halfway, and Phineas's optimism being put to the ultimate test while Isabella has to inspire him not to give up. Though the Paris stuff did feel kinda annoying. I don't think that Isabella is the type to sing and then cry to Ferb because Phineas didn't look at her in Paris. He was busy with literally trying to fix their only travel so they can actually get home. And I don't think Phineas is the type to look at Candace and Ferb and be like, I thought y'all would get dates in Paris. That felt like it was just in there for the sake of Isabella comedically blowing up. And Isabella crying to Ferb later only felt like it was there so she could then realize she needs to motivate Phineas and that watching a sunset with him is not what she wants after all. But if we ignore that portion, overall, the special is a fun adventure with some good lessons. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't care too much for Rollercoaster the musical, and I almost always skip the songs when rewatching, but I guess it is fun to see the little changes from the original, plus the homages to actual musicals. However, at this point, it really feels like the exact details of the Rollercoaster episode have been burned into my brain, and despite how iconic it is as that first episode, I really wouldn't mind never hearing about it again. Now, the Where's Perry special is genuinely so underrated and so good. We get to go to Africa with comedic bits that break African stereotypes, and everyone gets character arcs set up. Buford thinking brawn is everything, Baljeet arguing you need brains, Isabella on her patch quest, and Candace with her Jeremy concerns. Candace literally goes full jungle mode because she thinks Jeremy broke up with her, and she even helps fight near the end. Then there's Carl going evil because of Doof's innator, giving us the smash hit evil for extra credit. We get Monogram and Doof working together, and Perry getting sent to Africa because the message is, home is where your family is. The cliffhangers at the end of part 1 are fantastic. Candace thinking Jeremy is breaking up with her, the kids falling because of Buford's rash thinking, Perry getting zapped out of existence, and worst of all, Linda and Lawrence not having a reservation after all. Weirdly, the second episode of this two-parter aired a whole month after the first. That's crazy, but lucky for us, we can watch it all in one go. The show also does really great Halloween specials, and I really hope to see more of those in the revival, despite the fact that it looks like it's going to be airing every summer instead of throughout the year like it usually does. So maybe they're going to have some special episodes scheduled for the Halloween season. I also liked Phineas and Ferb's Christmas Vacation because Doof listening to Sal Tuscany singing about a naughty-inator, and turns out that Santa Claus orchestrated this whole thing so Phineas can get his Christmas wish of being just like Santa. That's just so fun. And now let's get into the boatload of season 4 specials. Mission Marvel is a special I am never watching again, and honestly I don't even want to acknowledge it as canon because it sucks. The whole thing felt like some weird hodgepodge where the two universes just don't quite fit together. The plot itself is so manufactured, and the characterizations of Candace, Isabella, and Phineas are ludicrous. Like, I'm really supposed to believe Candace was too starstruck by celebrity superheroes that she writes fanfiction about when she's never had trouble talking to celebrities before, like the Bettys in Tiny Cowboy. Who came up with that? They make her so purposely stupid just for the sake of the plot. Yeah, she's had accidents happen before because of Phineas and Ferb stuff, but that was really either because of them or because she was trying to see what the invention would do. When she sped up the hair growth thing, for instance, that was intentional without knowing the consequences, but here it's specifically for the sake of driving her and Phineas apart. And then Candace being sad and depressed is also so out of character. If Phineas was yelling at her, it would be most in character for her to be like, I'm telling Mom, Phineas won't let me help the superheroes in our backyard. Instead, she gets all wimpy and goes to apologize to Phineas while Isabella's literally doing nothing. Suddenly the story becomes how the girls were excluded by the boys, and that has never happened before. When has Phineas ever not had something for Isabella to do? She's literally a fireside girl with serious skills that could have been useful. They could have been the ones fixing the power distributor this whole time after Baljeet broke it. But instead, this whole episode, she's useless. The girls get this lame song about how they want to help but aren't allowed. And oh my lord, I mean, the song may sound nice, but it's so lame. And her not knowing what button to hit in space because she was too love-struck by Phineas? Jesus Christ. It's just so manufactured and performative. This is why the Beak episode was so much better. Candace isn't some wimpy apologizer, and Isabella doesn't just sit there waiting for Phineas to do stuff. And most importantly, Phineas would never treat Isabella and Candace like that. The only part of the special that made sense was Doof and the villains, Perry, and Buford and Baljeet. Especially compared to the Star Wars special, this one was hot garbage. The Star Wars special was phenomenal. They clearly knew and loved the material they had to work with from both universes and fit everyone into the exact right spots for optimal comedy and plot. Every ounce of this special was utilized for its comedy. The fact that the Empire stole Doof's walnut cracking invention and turned it into the Death Star is just insane. And Candace being on a mission to get socks for Darth Vader along with Buford and Baljeet is just so ridiculous but fun. And the brothers have a whole song about loving Tatooine when all Luke wanted to do was leave the planet. The plot and how it came together was perfect. Ferb saving Perry from Doof's Sithinator, then Phineas having to battle Ferb, and Candace reuniting with Phineas asking who Ferb is because she didn't know their mom remarried. But the highlight of the whole episode is Candace's song about how awesome the Empire is. It single-handedly undoes the damage from Mission Marvel and Candace Against the Universe. I love how her song combines the themes of both Star Wars and Phineas and Ferb. Her arc in this episode is great because it captures that theme about if we're the good guys, why are we blowing up planets? And the best part, of course, is them realizing the Death Star was built in a way where one hit could destroy the whole thing, which is the case in the original Star Wars movie. And they're like, who would design such a thing? It's like having a self-destruct button. And that's so funny because that's Doof's trademark. It's a massive running gag through the show, but to point it out like this with Star Wars really takes it to an unexpected level. But the best special of them all is obviously Night of the Living Pharmacists. The concept of Doof accidentally creating zombie pharmacists is just so ridiculous, but at the same time, it maintains such a level of suspense, and just the way the story is crafted is so good, I almost want to go watch it again right now. Candace being paired with Vanessa, the boys losing Isabella, and Phineas having a full-blown panic attack about it, the suspenseful cliffhanger when we think Perry locked himself in with a zombie, but actually it turns out it was the real Doof, then Stacy being the character who's completely oblivious to everything around her and somehow manages to avoid all the chaos, plus Isabella figuring out the source of the contamination, and even freaking Simon Pegg and Nick Frost making cameos in their Shaun of the Dead outfits talking about how can you become a pharmacist and grow a lab coat. Like, this special really hit every nail on the head. Also, take notes, Mission Marvel, Candace's first reaction to the Doof clones was to call her mom to check if the boys were making zombies, and Baljeet brings up how Isabella could build a generator in her sleep because of the Fireside Girls emergency preparedness class she teaches. Plus later, Candace is also super helpful when the place starts swarming. The characters actually act like themselves instead of being useless for the sake of the plot. Also take notes, act your age, which we'll talk about next. Because Phineas so obviously likes Isabella already, and I know they're too young to get together now, but it always feels weird when shows like this try to have their cake and eat it too. Like they have Isabella confess, but then everyone loses the last few minutes of their memory, and same with all the progress made in Across the Second Dimension. It kind of ruins the important milestones in their relationship for their actual first kiss and confession to both be wiped out of memory. Like, that's a little weird, but besides that, everything else in this special was pretty awesome. Now, this might be a lot to ask for, but I really hope Act Your Age is not canon. The problem is when they found out season 4 was their last, they had to do this random stuff to quickly wrap things up, answering questions like what happens to Doof and do Finn and Bella get together, but it's just not good. Nobody liked it for a reason, and I really hope they don't hold these as canon. It just feels like every single future for every single character is something I absolutely don't want. Baljeet being a professor is so ridiculous. Sure, he likes school a lot, but I don't think he would like teaching. I think it'd make more sense if he ended up doing something crazy. And Buford going to film school and being super pretentious is just kind of lame. Ferb going to some school in England where they have some wizarding is funny, like the jokes in this episode still kind of hit, but the futures just feel so boring. And Irving working for OWCA? Just no. I get it because he's the AV nerd of Phineas and Ferb, and Carl did AV stuff for OWCA, but no. Candace going to law school where she busts people isn't a reach, but I think it's weird that she invented a way to bust people without evidence. That just feels like her future is literally just a throwaway joke. Also, the fact that Candace wasn't part of this episode pretty much at all is really just kind of trash because she's a main protagonist of the show. I think it makes more sense to see Candace as maybe an investigative journalist with her own TV show so she can bust people but also be a star like she always wanted. Like, remember when she became the Rutabaga princess so she could be on TV? Candace becoming a celebrity as an adult would make a lot of sense because in so many episodes she really wants to be famous. And yeah, she was a teenager and a lot of teenagers might want to be famous, but I think for Candace it would really make a lot of sense. And surely the boys are also famous as well for everything they've done. Plus Phineas is low-key really good at hosting and public speaking, so I'd be surprised if his future job doesn't align with that. But he just felt really out of character this episode, like he's just depressed about Isabella the whole time. The whole Finn and Bella situation is so forced too, and everyone is just so weird as teenagers. The teenage Fireside Girls and Baljeet separately talking about manipulating the situation with romances is so lame. But see, even Ginger and Baljeet ended up together, and we're supposed to believe Phineas and Isabella didn't. Plus the friends setting up this whole thing in the backyard to get them to fall in love when you can literally just say, hey, the other person likes you, so go get them now. For Phineas to be that oblivious to the age of 18 is crazy. Like, none of your friends told you till now, and him telling Isabella he started having a thing for her in high school feels like the writers needed to wrap this up, but needed an excuse for it to not have happened earlier. It's weird because the writers are very intentional throughout the series to show that Phineas very obviously likes Isabella and treats her differently than anyone else, and obviously since they're kids they shouldn't get together in the actual show, but for the revival I think it would be perfectly fine if they realized they liked each other but then just decided to stay friends until they were older. Like, we have plenty of time for that when we're in high school, so let's just have fun being great friends. And plus Phineas running up to Isabella's car and the kiss outside was just so cringe, and Ferb and Vanessa being a couple is literally disgusting. I hate it so much. He's literally 18. Like, what happened to Monty? Ferb didn't have to get paired up. I thought everyone was originally 10 in the show based on Quantum Boogaloo, but I guess this means they're 8. Whatever. Also, with Doof and Perry, he induces a midlife crisis, which is interesting I guess, but overall just not the best episode because everything feels way too forced. At the very least, Phineas and Ferb Save Summer is really fun, and I love summer all over the world. It's really cool how they go all around the globe showcasing different countries and cultures, and then later when they have to save the world, they also have friends from around the world helping them. This may not seem like a big deal, but to expose kids to the fact that there are various different types of people all around the world who are in fact just like them, that's a great thing to show kids. Also to show that these other kids are also capable of rocket engineering is fun. Like, it's not just these kids in Danville that can do crazy things all summer. You can make the most of your summer too. This episode also has Candace learning to overcome her fear of spiders to help save the world. And again, Mission Marvel, take notes, because when Candace pushes the control into the red, Phineas doesn't yell at her and tell her to get out. He presents a solution immediately. Buford's like, it must be a special episode if he's yelling at his sister, but he's not really yelling at her, and in fact, he was yelling at you in the Klimpaloon episode, and he was genuinely mad because Buford totally messed up their plan. It's also funny because Phineas is trying to give Candace a pep talk, but it doesn't really help because he keeps accidentally reminding her about the spiders, and that's way more in line with their sibling dynamic. Meanwhile, this is all happening, of course, because Love Muffin and OWCA really got into it, and I know the animators had fun with that. I love how Doof ends up helping OWCA because even he's like, the scheme is just going way too far. Doesn't mean he's a good guy, it just means he has his limits. And then there's Monogram having a whole life crisis, and Irving's Nature is Gross song going viral. Just a really fun episode all around. Now I will say, I am conflicted about the last day of summer episode. I think the concept itself is good for a finale, with Doof inventing the position of tri-state governor to rule over Roger, and the whole Groundhog Day premise with the day starting over and over. It's a fun concept for sure, and what a cliffhanger in the middle to have the boys disappear from existence and Candace then having to convince everyone they exist. It's also funny because when she heads over to the other side, she's like, Mom and Dad's lives must suck not having any kids, and then cut to them partying it up. But there's a really serious issue here with the Doof side of things. Vanessa having been accepted to OWCA's internship program makes zero sense. When would she ever be interested in that, even if she was dating Monty? This is literally only for the sake of the conflict of her needing to move out because she can't live with Doof if he's evil. And this, of course, is so the show can end with Doof no longer being evil. I'm trying to wrap up Doof's whole evilness with Vanessa just telling him, you only build your innators to exact petty revenge and you're a nice guy pretending to be evil. That's literally not true. Doof is genuinely evil, but like he said in an episode way long ago,
there's good evil and then there's bad evil.
Doof is good evil. He would never go super far like destroying the world, but he's still got evil plans and it's fun for him, and he especially likes going after Roger and being petty. He even tried being an OWCA before and screwed it all up. Vanessa's like, I don't think this lifestyle choice is making you happy either, is it? Yes it is. Doof genuinely enjoys being evil and getting thwarted by Perry the Platypus. It's literally their thing. And it's not like he makes money from evil. He could literally do anything with his wife's alimony, and he chooses to be evil. This episode is just trying to quickly wrap things up, but it's just this ridiculous rushed way of ending the story, and I really hope the revival completely ignores it. Plot-wise, I will say there's a bit of an underwhelming sort of aspect to this episode, but it's fine. I still like most of it. Once the episode is on the home stretch, we get a big song recapping a bunch of stuff they did, and we get the kids reminiscing together while Doof and Perry's crew reminisce together. And try not to cry as Phineas looks out the back door after everyone leaves and waves goodbye to the camera. And so the show does end in a really nice, heartwarming sort of way that seems quite perfect for the finale of this show. Technically, there's another special called The OWCA Files, and honestly, I'm gonna just ignore this. It felt like a backdoor pilot to a spin-off show, and I don't care for it at all. It doesn't even feel like it has the same spirit as the original. Then we have the 2 movies I'll mention real quick. Across the Second Dimension is really fun, with a great soundtrack first of all, and some interesting character journeys for everyone, especially with Phineas and Ferb finding out about Perry, and of course Candace learning about growing up. And then there's Candace Against the Universe, which is like if someone wrote a fan fiction after completely misunderstanding Candace's relationship with Phineas and Ferb from the actual show. It's not like it's badly written as a standalone, it just doesn't feel like canon. Like even the world building of the space stuff feels so different different than the usual world building we've had with Meap and such, and we very thoroughly discussed the whole Flynn-Fletcher sibling dynamics and Candace as a character across the whole show, which this movie goes against completely. So I just hope they disregard the events of this movie. I guess real quick I should also mention Milo Murphy's Law, which has Doof as a character and also has a Phineas and Ferb crossover episode, but I deeply hate that they tried to make the coincidences of the formula into this scientific thing. Like in the original show, it's just supposed to be this fun part of the formula, it's not that serious, but in this show, their good luck is like some scientific thing that's the opposite to Milo's scientific bad luck. But despite the few things I mentioned, I do have great hopes for this revival. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it makes me a little nervous to see the Candace theme song take over and that first clip they released and the trailer, not because they're bad, but because something about the writing just feels off. It feels just slightly different from the original, in a weird sort of way. But I'm not gonna judge the revival based on a couple clips. Creator Dan Povenmire said it's basically the same show as before, which is great. I don't want a new show. Some people were annoyed that Candace was gonna be busting again and Doof was gonna be evil again because they think that's regressing. But first of all, when did Candace ever indicate she was gonna stop busting? Clearly the show only ended because Disney has a weird 4-season rule for pretty much all their shows. And when they thought they were ending the show with Last Day of Summer, of course they wrapped it up with Doof not being evil anymore in the extremely manufactured way we discussed earlier. Also, let's not forget there are multiple Halloween and Christmas episodes that take place during the year after that summer. So it's really not that serious if they get back into the new summer the same way. The thing to remember about all these characters is that they truly enjoy what they do. Candace enjoys the literal act of busting, the kids enjoy doing these crazy things every day, Perry enjoys fighting Doof, and Doof enjoys being evil and fighting Perry every day. And all of this is part of the story engine. Like, don't listen to random people online and psychoanalyze these characters like y'all did in Candace Against the Universe. Stick to the existing formula and characters from the show. There's incredible depth there already, and that's what made the show, and the revival should honor that while finding new ways to keep things fresh. The formula itself allows for creativity, and the revival should be good to just pick up where they left off, as long as they ignore Doof 101, Candace Against the Universe, and Milo Murphy's Law canon, and just focus on being creative like they did before. Phineas and Ferb was always a show that celebrated youth and creativity and imagination and fun, and we need this now more than ever in a time when Hollywood and audiences in general are so against anything that feels even remotely childlike. There's this disdain for youth and a glamorization of darkness and edginess and being cynical. So I'm actually very eager for this revival. Some things I'd like to see that I haven't already talked about is more of those formula flip-flop episodes, like maybe Doof's trying to stop Perry from doing something good and the boys want to show their mom something Candace did. I also want to see more of Buford and Baljeet's families too, beyond the tiny appearances we've gotten so far. I also wonder how modern technology and social media is going to play into the show. Like in the original, they had those teen magazines to criticize or the nature of the internet, so now are they going to satirize influencers and such? Of course, we also have to see Croquet Y8, and it'd be cool to see one of those first time episodes sitcoms do, like the first time the boys built something and the first time Candace tried to bust them and Perry tried to bust Doof. But I do think this revival needs to have an official ending, whenever that might be. Sitcoms usually end when the story engine ends, so in this case, I think the boys need to get busted and Candace should be vindicated for everything she said. But given their relationship, she defends them and becomes their supervisor so they can keep doing stuff safely. And also maybe Doof just retires from evil without joining OWCA so Perry can reveal his identity to the boys and Candace, because honestly it would be weird to end the show without them never knowing about that and without bringing those two storylines together, especially since Stacy and Vanessa both know about Perry. It'd be weird not to close that final gap. But anyway, I'm hyped for this show. I think it's just what the world needs right now, and I'm ready for a great summer. Sorry I wasn't able to go nearly in depth as I originally wanted to. I wanted to talk about every episode, but look how long this already is and how long it took me to get this out to you. But thanks for listening. And once again, this was Trash Talk Reverse. Lord knows when I'm gonna have the next video out, so in the meantime, subscribe, and I will see you soon.